please. So we're going to start with Funmi Akindejoye. And the title of her poster is The Bloom, Social Therapeutic Horticulture Project in Lagos, Nigeria. Funmi is from Nigeria. She's an environmental health researcher and a visual artist using art as a tool for social change, public health therapy, and education. She's a senior of Atlantic Fellow for Equity in Brain Health. Funmi's work focuses on environmental risk factors for brain health and the use of nature to improve psychological outcomes. She successfully conducted case studies in Nigeria, Finland, and Liberia, where she combines workshops and art exhibitions to showcase the results of these studies. In 2022, Funmi was nominated for the Global Metrodoro Awards as a female mental health leader in medicine and science. So welcome, Funmi.
Okay. All right. So as Laura had said earlier, I'll be presenting on the Bloom Social Therapeutic Horticulture Project for the elderly, age residents in Lagos, Nigeria. Give me a second. I can't see my. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. So basically, this project entails development of a low-maintenance healing garden in 2 selected care homes in Lagos, Nigeria, for the purpose of improving the quality of life of elderly residents and their caregivers. All right. So as a way of introduction, therapeutic gardens are plant-dominated environments, basically meant to facilitate interaction with the healing elements of nature. And it's important to note that there have been, limited knowledge and a lot of gaps in the use of therapeutic gardens or healing gardens, as you may want to call it, in less developed countries like Nigeria, sub-Saharan Africa. So this is more like one of the first of its kind to be done in Nigeria. And basically the objective of my presentation today is to describe the process and basic activities that were involved in creating this low maintenance healing garden. And for this project, we had 33 seniors participating in it, combined for the 2 elderly care homes. And with 20 of them were patients or people with dementia at various levels or stages of dementia. So basically, I divided the garden development into 4 stages. The pre-garden activities, garden installation, planting and art activities, and post-garden activities. So I'll take them one after the other. For the pre-garden activities, what we set out to do was we carried out a site assessment as well as needs assessment amongst the caregivers and management of the care home. This way to encourage co-creation and co-design. So we carried this survey before we started to know what specifically they would love to see in their garden. And for feedback, we got lots of, they want lots of vegetables in the garden, herbs, and all that. I can't go through everything now, the results that we got. For installation, majorly the features of the garden were locally fabricated for durability and of course for cost effectiveness. Features range from metal vertical planters or frames, as well as a metal mesh pergola. Everything was locally constructed, and also a rough seat that was made out of raffia material. And also one of the limitations that we faced in this process was space, limitation of space, because Lagos as a state in Nigeria is densely populated, and as such, space is a major problem. So when we got to the care homes, there were limited space. That was why we had settled to use a vertical wall garden. And also moving forward to the third part of it, where we had the planting and art activities. Here we involved the elderly residents as well as caregivers in planting, in sowing seeds, in transplanting flowers, and also in painting. So we involved the art part of it, where we had to paint the plant verses of each of these of the plant verses. At the end of the day, we came up with about, for the painted pots, we came up with about 80 painted pots, and we also did sort of like assessment for, you know, these processes using the Midas tool. However, the Midas is a music intervention tool, but due to the exploratory nature of this project, we had used it, you know, to measure the impact of the project. So if you can see from the pictures from afar, this is before the very first picture up there for Care Home 1. They usually use that place for a laundry line. So the next picture there is showing the process of the stages at which we, you know, we try to, our construction stage, we made, you know, sit in between the flower areas so that, you know, they can interact with the flowers as well. And that is part of the finished project, the third picture there. And same goes for the Care Home 2 to your right-hand side. I'll quickly move to, so I briefly give a brief about some of the psychological outcome, short-term outcome of the project. Basically, you can see the pictures and some of the pots that were painted both by caregivers and the planting session. So we measured agitation, we measured depression, as well as quality of life. And we found that there were statistically significant changes in agitation as well as quality of life. Quality of life increased and agitation, of course, reduced. But however, for depression, there was no positive impact. Then also for the Midas, we found a 40% increase in, you know, their analog, we call it the VA, the analog. So we used a tool, as I said earlier, we used the Midas tool, and we measured their level of involvement, their response, their enjoyment, and there was a 40% increase in all these various measures. And for caregivers, basically they have really positive, you know, feedback concerning the project. And here you can see some of the outcome, the pots that were painted and the flowers on it for both homes and some of the processes. Basically for what we found out at the end of the day, because, you know, there's one thing about doing this in the global north and doing it in the global south. So we found some, you know, recommendation that might be helpful for carrying out, you know, such interventions here in the global south. And basically in co-creation, practice co-creation and design with both caregivers, home management, and the residents was one. Then also, you know, naming the garden, like giving it a name that is, you know, familiar and unique, that has maybe a historical background with the persons in the home. They named the gardens themselves. So that was also important in terms of owning the garden. Then also commissioning of local fabrication is also important so that we have more customized features in the space. And also garden visibility and accessibility so that people don't get, the garden is not lost because it's not the, you know, the usual culture in our environment. So it needs to be visible for everyone to see it, and also it needs to be accessible. Then also we wrote grow culturally familiar and edible vegetables. So there are several vegetables we could have grown, but, you know, from the needs assessments, we found that, you know, growing vegetables that were well known to the residents before now was very important, and as well as vegetables that are usually used for local delicacies here in Nigeria was also important. Then also the use of vertical gardening, and also make provisions for shade and sunlight, because here in sub-Saharan Africa, it's tropical, so the sunlight is, we have more sunlight most times. So the shading them from sun is really important. So in conclusion, improvement in quality of life was one of the major, you know, impacts that we recorded, and also the short-term impact of improving their enjoyment, response, and also based on previous or prior latter time interaction with the home and observation, we found that they utilize the garden more. They sit out more now rather than stay indoors in their room doing nothing. They go there to take fresh air and so on. It's important to mention that this project was funded by the Alzheimer's Society, UK Alzheimer's Association, and the Global Brain Health Institute. Thank you very much. You can contact me. That's my email address. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Funmi, very much for the information on your research. We did get a comment. Those painted pot walls are gorgeous. And Anna is wondering, she says, interesting presentation. Why do you think there were no results in the group that had depression?